Laboratory X-18, considered by many to be home to some of the most grotesque monstrosities found in the zone. It is unclear how long the laboratory operated, but it is safe to say that the lab's story begins shortly before the 1986 disaster at the NPP. It was created by the Soviets in order to study the effects of the noosphere, and later, and more importantly, psi emissions. This experimentation with psychic energy began with the usage of a device known as a Kamenov emitter, in order to allow for limited exposure to a number of non-human subjects. The subjects exhibited a number of changes like hair loss, a growth of claws and teeth, and an increase in intellect. However, these subjects also had some violent tendencies, occasionally breaking out of their enclosures and damaging equipment or wounding staff. Even after these breakouts, the lab staff cruelly ramped up the amount of psi energy the subjects were exposed to over time, until the creatures' minds were brutally destroyed. This experiment was widely considered a success with the lab staff, and prompted a deeper research into psi emissions, ultimately leading to advances necessary in the development of the brain scorcher. The next logical step for the scientists of X-18 was to tempt fate and begin experimentation on larger beasts. Many researchers expressed interest in experimenting on human subjects, so though it is never outright said, it is likely safe to assume that some of the subjects were in fact human. Over time, the lab's stock of creatures grew in number until eventually, one of the subjects broke loose from its cage, and proceeded to set each of the other twisted and tortured creatures free. The staff fled to the upper levels of the laboratory, locking the code doors on either side of them, trapping themselves outside the main hall. Unable to escape, the researchers were left to wait until their own creations descended from the vents, tearing them to shreds out of vengeance for the years of pain and suffering they had caused. Today, the laboratory is home to a number of monsters and populated with the corpses of both the science team and the few stalkers brave enough to venture into it. A trip to such a notorious location with such a high body count is not to be taken lightly, as a stalker may very well find himself, like many others, calling Laboratory X-18 his grave.